Good morning, or good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Thank you for being here. It's me, Ari Dosset, Rashid. I'm your anthropologist and sociologist. Hit the like button, share this live stream, subscribe to the channel, become a member of the channel, and don't forget you can donate at the links below, and you can check my novels on Amazon. Thank you very much. All right. In this audio life, I want to address a quote I found on YouTube a while back. I was scrolling through YouTube and I found this quote. This melanated woman was using this quote in some interview. So I thought, let me type this quote in Google and find where it comes from. I believe the quote comes originally from a European woman called Laurie Buchanan, but I may be wrong about that also. Anyway, the quote goes like this: whatever you're not changing, you're choosing. Now, listen to me very well. Worldlings, even though they are in darkness because they don't serve the Heavenly Father, that does not mean they can't say things that are useful. Worldlings can say things that are factual and useful, absolutely, regardless of whatever their lifestyle is, regardless of if they are in paganism or not. Now, where the quote comes from, it's a good statement, whoever came up with it. So credit whom credit is due, but I'm going to use this statement now to explain something we often overlook. This quote, whatever you're not changing, you're choosing, is something we often overlook when it comes to the relationships in our lives. Now, not everyone overlooks this. If this does not apply to you, then it does not apply to you. Simple as that. If it doesn't apply to you, it doesn't apply to you. However, a lot of people out there, including believers, this does apply to. Okay, I'm coming right into it. Let me come with a parable for you. Let's say your name is I'm just imagine your name is David. Okay, you David grew up in a house where your father was drinking all the time, a lot. This man would be drunk almost every day. He would get out of his mind, screaming, shouting, throwing objects. Actually, after you went in therapy for your anger management issues, because you at least admit you had an anger management issue, you went to therapy. It's during therapy you realize how violent your upbringing was. And then you tell the therapist, well, my mom was always there to protect me and this and that. And then suddenly the therapist cuts you off and say, hold on a minute, David, I need to stop you right over here. Why are you defending your mother? And David looks at the therapist and says, what do you mean why I'm defending my mom? Anytime dad went out of line, she was there. And David. The therapist stops you again. David, you know what you just said? Every time dad went out of line, mom was there. Okay, why was she still there? She could have reported your father, and he would have been arrested easily. Well, he was arrested a few times. Okay, but why did she stay? Then the therapist calls him off again. Why did your mom stay with him? She could have reported him, get him locked up for a long time for child abuse and for parental spousal abuse. She could have went to a shelter with herself and the children, including you and your siblings. She could have married another man that was more stable. Then you would have a stable stepdad in your life. I mean, there were many options she had to get rid of this dangerous man. Why didn't she do it? Why did she stay with him? And David got confused. And David asked the therapist, well, saying, hey, ma'am, it seems like you're telling me my mom chose to remain with this monster. The therapist tells David, I'm a woman myself. And let me tell you one thing. If a man is not good for a woman knows how to make excuses to get away from him. If a woman is not interested, she'll either be blunt about it or she'll make excuses if she doesn't want to be rude. But when a woman doesn't want something, she knows how to make excuses, even play the victim to get away from whatever she doesn't want, whether it's a relationship, whether it's a job, or whatever. And in the modern day culture, especially in the Western world, women often get away with excuses. Now, your mom did not have an excuse; she had a legitimate reason, multiple reasons to to, to be away from that man. Why didn't she leave? Why did she keep herself and you and your siblings in danger? If she truly cared about her own children, including you, she would have kicked that man out, said you and your siblings wouldn't have to walk on eggshells while growing up. She on purpose discarded the well-being of her own children as well as the well-being of the whole community just in order to have her escape. Just like a junkie is escaping uh, by taking drugs all the time, or an alcoholic escaping by always going to alcohol, she was escaping with the man. That man was her escape. As long as she was with him, she could play the victim and get sympathy. I feel bad about herself. So then she didn't have to look at herself and fix herself in the mirror. That's what's going on. Now, even though the female therapist was quite harsh and direct, David appreciated it because David realized, indeed, why the heck am I still defending my mom? It doesn't add up. Now, the parable I just gave, how many believers are still defending, whether it's a parent or an ex-partner, or sometimes if they grow one, the children, grandchildren, or well, let's forget about children and grandchildren now. Okay, let's talk about people you could have influenced. Now you had influence over your children and to some extent your grandchildren, but you couldn't have influenced your parents or grandparents who came before you. Okay, so your failure didn't cause the doom of your mom, dad, grandparents, nor the other people because they were there before you. So let's focus now on the people that were there before you. How many of you are still making excuses for a parent, grandparent, or older relative, or people who've been on earth longer than you? How many people still make excuses for such people? Even when it's clear that there's no excuse, no reason that can justify how they're behaving right now. Listen, if there's a bad situation, I'm not telling you you can always change the situation. We're being realistic over here. Sometimes you have bad situations that are not your fault. You did it's not you didn't cause it, and but the thing is you can't change it either. If it's a bad situation that you cannot change, you can still influence the situation by how you relate to it and behave towards it. Even if you can't change the situation directly, you can still affect the situation with your attitude. So if there's a bad situation and you don't even admit it's a bad situation, guess what? You've become part of the bad situation by not wanting to admit what it is. In the parable I just gave on to you, yet David growing up in a violent household where the father was always drunk and beating everyone. But I think the mother was complicit because she should have admitted her husband was dangerous, out of his mind, and she needs to get away from him to keep both herself and children safe. She had to admit and acknowledge what the situation was. That was her obligation. The fact she did not admit nor acknowledge the situation means that she became part of the bad situation. Simple as that. So she chose the bad situation. Simple as it is. Okay, let me go to another parable now. Let's say now that you have a job, but the thing is, the job is draining you. It's affecting your mental health. And you think, well, I need to pay bills. If I can't pay bills, they may kick me out of the house. Or yeah, so it's true that paying bills is a requirement. It's an artificial requirement because it's not a natural requirement. Something we decide as humans, but nevertheless, you need a place to stay. You need to pay your rent, or you need to pay bills, or whatever. It's true you need to pay bills. Well, what's more true than paying bills is that your well-being matters more. Because if you fall down and die today, what happens to the bills? You know what I mean? Or if you end up in hospital right now, what's happening to the bills? But okay, so you have a job. The job is draining you. You have to admit the job is draining you or the job has a bad effect on you. And from admitting, you have to go to acknowledging uh, that you need to do something about it. Either you work less hours, and if your employer is not okay with that, you quit, you go to another job, or you go on welfare. You have to get out of the situation. If you won't even admit that the job is draining you and have a bad effect on you, guess what? You've chosen to be part of the bad situation because you keep yourself in that bad in that situation over and over again. So you're choosing the bad outcome of being drained and being hindered. If later you end up having a burnout or whatever, okay, you're not you're not a victim actually. Let me tell you why. You're a victim when you admit a situation for what it is and acknowledge that you have to do something about it as far as you can, and you do what you can about the situation. If you do whatever you could possibly do about the situation, as to the best of your ability, to the best of your knowledge, and still the outcome is bad, and it's not your fault. Okay, in this case, if you're doing your part to the best of your ability and the best of your knowledge, and others still do you wrong, and you end up with damage, okay, now you're a victim. But you're not a victim when you can clearly see the situation is bad, but you don't want to admit it's bad. You not admitting situation is bad means you're choosing that bad situation. Simple as that. And this counts for everything in life. Now look, there are things you cannot change. Okay? If there's a situation that you cannot change, guess what? You cannot change the situation. So it's not you. Well, nevertheless, just because you can't change the situation does not mean you shouldn't change your attitude towards the situation. Okay, for example, let's say now, again, there's an employer. An employer is quite mean. That is his defect that he's mean. Each one should look in the mirror and admit he has an issue. And then one needs to learn empathy and learn how to be a balanced human being. He's the one failing. So you have to admit that's how he's like. But you're not going to approve how he's like, because you have to acknowledge this is some he needs to change. The fact is you cannot change the employer. So you also acknowledge that okay, the employer is toxic. He should change, absolutely, because it's not okay. We can't approve it, but we do accept how he is, but we don't approve how he is. So because of that, we either don't deal with him, and that means we need to look for another job or whatever. Or if we have to deal with him, we deal with him on a practical level, keep the contact the bare minimum. So, okay, just because you can't change the employer doesn't mean you don't have the obligation or responsibility to deal with the situation in a constructive way. If you live in a neighborhood and there's a lot of crime in the neighborhood, you by yourself cannot just change your neighborhood for the better just like that. You do have to admit there's a lot of crime in the neighborhood, and you need to acknowledge that it's a deep-rooted issue that can't easily be solved. And you need to admit that the best you can do is be a good influence in the neighborhood. But know that you being good influence does not guarantee that the crime is going to stop. So either you move out of that neighborhood altogether, or as long as you're living there, you make sure you are countering the crime by being good influence. But if you live in a neighborhood and you don't want to hear about anything that goes on, you just want to be left alone, go to your job, come home, and that's it. You don't even look around you. Guess what? You chose to be willfully ignorant. So no matter so if the neighborhood gets worse and worse, you're part of the reason why the neighborhood is getting worse, why the neighborhood is declining, because you chose to be part of that bad situation by choosing to be willfully ignorant. Simple as that. Anyone out there who refuses to update and upgrade their mentality, they're choosing to be backwards. they're choosing to stagnate. They're choosing to decline. Yet, when decline comes and they're dealing with the bad outcomes, now they want to act like they're the victim or they know what goes on. And these people, they know deep down inside very well it's them. They chose not to listen to the best advice. They chose to hold on to their opinions without checking whether their thinking and feeling was even in harmony with reality. They chose to only be around people that validate how they thought and felt. They chose to avoid anyone who genuinely wanted to help them. They chose to operate in lack. So they preferred and they continued in lack and violence. They chose to become part of the darkness. So now they're part of the darkness, a part of the problem. And now that the problem is damaging them, now they want to act like they know what goes on. They want your sympathy to balance themselves out. Well, let me tell you, such people know very well that it's them. And anytime you go into ask them constructive questions to come to a solution, such people often either say that, well, it's none of your business, or they will act like, why are you so intrusive, or they'll try to make you the problem. If someone claims that they are the victim, or they claims that life's unfair, blah, 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 but then you ask them questions to help them out, you don't accuse them, you don't point the finger at them, but you ask them questions to help them out. Those constructive questions itself is going to expose them that they are the problem, or at least part of the problem. So they suddenly will either make excuses to get away from you, or they will accelerate the victim role and dodge your questions, or will flat out attack you like you're the bad guy because they know that it's them. But they don't want to admit it's them because then it means now that they have to deal with the outcomes. And if they admit it's them, that means they will lose credibility with others also. They just want to walk away without any consequences bothering them anymore. They want a bailout. They don't want to be responsible or accountable. Well, guess what? That's not how reality works. But that's how a lot of people in the world are. Not everyone in the world is a narcissist. I'm not saying that. But a lot of people in the world have narcissistic tendencies. I'm being real with you. Whatever someone is not admitting to, they're not acknowledging. Now, some things are painful to admit. Some things are very hurtful to admit. But you know what's more painful and more hurtful? Denying the obvious. If there's a situation that's bad and you don't admit it, it may be painful to admit it, but you know what's going to be more painful? You denying the bad situation, and because of that, you are making it worse now. That's more painful, both for you and for those around you. Now, in this case, you chose to go to denial. You chose to uh, to look the other way. That's you. That's your decision. So when the pain begins to haunt you, well, you brought it on yourself. But the thing is, the people around you may not have chosen to deny anything. So now they have to deal with the consequences of your decision. Now, if everyone around you is just as in denial as you are, then hey, they're not victims either. It means you're both um, collaborating with the same violence. Simple as that. Yes, when there's a bad situation and you don't admit to yourself this is a bad situation, let alone acknowledge that something needs to be done about it, that is violence. Because now you are facilitating harm, both on yourself and others. That's violence. It's unacceptable and we shouldn't condone it. Look, you cannot choose a bad situation and at the same time expect the blessing of God to work out for you. It doesn't work that way. Now, again, I'm not telling you to solve everything in your life. Because if you were able to solve everything, you would have done it by now. You can't. Am I saying that you can change any bad situation you encounter? No, absolutely not. Some situations you just have to get away from them as soon as possible. What I'm saying is, if you can't do anything about the situation, at least change how you relate to it. And if that means walk away from it for good, then you do that. But you're not going to deny it's a bad situation and facilitate it. Or you're not going to keep yourself in a situation going back and forth and it's never nothing's being resolved. You don't do that either. Simple as that. Oh, I see Tammy, say hi Tammy. The rest is here. Let yourself be known in the live chat too. Thank you very much. And I want you to examine everyone you encounter in life. Listen, you don't have to know someone for years on an intimate level in order to know what you're dealing with. If someone is bad news, first of all, their negative, their negative, the negative emissions from the energy field, you will pick that up, and you will realize, okay, something's off this individual. You may not know what's off, you pick up something's off. You can notice someone's body language. You can notice some tones of someone's voice. I mean, look, you don't have to know someone intimate for years to know what you're dealing with. Now, I'm not telling you to make conclusions based on superficial information. That goes too far. That can even be harmful. So I'm not telling you to do that. What I'm telling you to do is look at the proof in front of you. What are you dealing with? It's judgmental if you check superficial information and make a whole conclusion about someone based on that. That goes too far. But it does. But what's not judgmental is when you check the evidence and proof and you make sound conclusion based on actual proof, facts that are proven. Now, that is not judgmental. That's having common sense and that's being healthy. You should judge human beings for what they are and what you're dealing with. Okay, look. Let's say, for example, um, someone gave you a backhanded compliment. They kind of insulted you, but in a kind way. If it happened once, you can say, maybe I'm wrong about the situation. Maybe I just misinterpreted what the individual said. If it happens another time, you could think, okay. If it happens a second time, you really rather should begin to back down. Think, hold on a minute. This individual said something weird towards me last time. Now he said something weird again. Don't let it happen the third time. Okay? One time is just an incident. And the incident may not mean anything. It just be an incident. Maybe the individual didn't have a good day and they malfunctioned, or maybe you're the one that misinterpreted what they said. Okay, it's just an incident. But if it happened a second time, you start thinking, okay, there's no such thing as coincidence. What is this? If you observe it happening a third time, you know it's a pattern. So now you need to admit, okay, there's a pattern over here that's destructive. Either I'm the one who's way too hypersensitive and feeling offended too quickly, or the other individual indeed has some type of low view of me that they want to validate. There's something's wrong with the situation. I need to divest from this situation and check out what goes on. If you pick up something off in either an interaction or an environment, and you don't document it and you don't actually consider it, then that's already said. You've chosen it. Simple as that. Again, let me be clear. Sometimes you're not aware how bad situation is. That can happen too. So I'm not saying that just because a bad situation overtook you, automatically it's your fault you brought it on yourself. No. Sometimes you're not aware how bad situation is. Sometimes you're just overtaken by bad situations. That happens, okay? It's not your fault. You didn't do it yourself. Sometimes you just overtaken by bad situations. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about when something is in development and it's obvious something is wrong or something is off, and you don't take steps back, you don't examine anything, you just brush off, that's being neglectful. It's one thing for someone to be either mentally ill or just dysfunctional and they don't see something bad coming and they end up in a bad situation. That's different. That means others just took advantage of your ignorance or they took advantage of your natural weakness. That's not you. But for someone not to want to see that something is off, even if it's interface, that's a cultic mentality. That's willful neglect. And willful neglect borders violence. Simple as that. You cannot excuse that ever. If you did this in the past, listen, don't beat yourself up about it because you can't change the past. You can't undo the damage. Just make sure you renounce that attitude and make sure you develop, become a better and safe human being today. That's what you need to do. That's how you rectify your past, by becoming better and safe today. You don't, that's complying with justice. If you were in the wrong, or if you were a bad influence, you cannot change the past nor undo all the damage that happened, but you can be a better and safe human being today. That's what you obliged to do. Absolutely. But you just admitting that you were a bad influence or you're wrong in the past and act like it doesn't matter anymore because you're not bothered by it, that means that you are neglectful also towards others today by not rectifying the past, by becoming a better, safer human being today. Simple as that. So again, what people are not changing to the best of their ability and knowledge is something they're choosing. Okay, let's say now that, for example, what goes on in the Middle East right now, this Gaza genocide. And what if now you're a believer and you grew up in church where everyone was pro-Israel all the time, or pro-Businet? But you can clearly see, hold on a minute, this doesn't add up. And you can clearly see, hold on a minute, this is not okay. And you're really not okay with what's going on in Gaza right now. Question to you, can you stop the Gaza genocide? I'm telling you, likely you can't. Okay? It's something beyond your reach. Second, can you influence what goes on? Yes. Even if your influence is small, you can still have some influence on what goes on. So you cannot take it on you to stop the genocide. It's something beyond your reach. What you can do is be of good influence to counter what goes on. So that means if you have relatives who keep supporting Israel unconditionally, I'm sorry, but you shouldn't support any human establishment unconditionally, especially not the government. And especially when the government is proven to be violating not only international law, but also human rights. You shouldn't do that. So they're wrong anyway. So if you notice that those relatives of yours and people around you, they're not open to admit things, that means that they are willfully neglectful. That means they're just violent. They are part of the violence that the state of Israel is doing by them condoning it and them facilitating it. Because here's the thing, evildoers will not continue unless they are supported. Evildoers can only continue doing evil when they're facilitated and supported. Either they facilitate and support by people actively engage with them, or they facilitate and support by people not doing anything about it. So, okay, even if you can't change an evildoer into a righteous individual. So even though you can't change those evil people for the better, you can still change how you relate to them to make it hard on them and take away opportunities from them for doing evil. You can't prevent people from being thieves and burglars, but you can put security cameras around and guard your house so they don't have the opportunity to rob your house. You see what I mean? So in this case, if you still have those friends and relatives who are condoning and facilitating genocide, guess what? This shows that these people are willing to overlook the murder of over 15,000 children who couldn't defend themselves. That means these people are so desperate to escape that they're willing to overlook children being murdered. These are the type of people you're dealing with. Look, if in that case, are you still staying close with your friends and family? No, I'm not telling you to isolate yourself and become depressed. Absolutely not. Don't do that. That's not good for your mental health. I'm not telling you to do that. Absolutely not. I'm just telling you, make sure the people you are dealing with, are people who are safe to deal with. People that condone a genocide or who facilitate it by not calling out the guilty party, I'm sorry to say, but how can you feel safe with people like that? If they're willing to look away when thousands of children are being murdered unnecessarily, what else are they looking away from? Oh, now you reflect on your life. Were there things that happened to you, or were the best situation you were in that could have easily been stopped, but they weren't stopped because people around you just let it happen to you? You start reflecting on these people. I just used the Gaza genocide as a case study. It doesn't have to be something big like the Gaza genocide. Maybe there's just let's say there's domestic violence happening in your neighborhood alone. Let's talk something more local. And you think to yourself, we need to call the cops. We need to do this. And you notice that the people around you don't even address nor the domestic violence around. They say, well, if it happens, we have to close doors. It's their privacy of their home. It's none of our business. But hold on a minute. There are also children being harmed by domestic violence. Well, it's their children. They chose our children, not us. If the parents are abused the children and the parents are removed, they're arrested, who's to look after children? I don't want to look after them. I have my own life, blah, blah. So people don't want to take accountability, responsibility for their own community. So when it's domestic violence, they don't address it. But you do. Now, guess what? These people are so cowardly and so narcissistic that they are okay with putting others, including children, in danger and facilitating dangerous children so they can have their ease. Are these the type of people you want to be associated with? Are these type of people you should be trusted? You should be open to? Now, let's say there's domestic violence in your neighborhood, and you notice that people aren't addressing it nor doing anything about it. Or some people may admit it happens, but don't acknowledge that, okay, we admitted it, so next time we need to acknowledge that we have to do something about it. Even if people admit a bad situation, for example, in this case, domestic violence in neighborhoods, but they don't acknowledge that we need to do something about it, if they either are not even admitting it, they're in full denial, or they do admit it but don't acknowledge it, in both cases you're dealing with toxic people. These people are not good people. They're not even safe to be around. If you notice this about some people and you still hang out with them and you still stay involved with them, guess what? You've chosen toxic company. You've chosen danger. At some point, when evil spirits begin to use those people against you, of course, the evil spirits are to blame for their doing. And you can also blame those people for being toxic. But the thing is, why are you still engaged with them when there was proof into your face that they're toxic and they're enabling evil? Why do you stay involved with them? Okay, if you feel lonely, okay, loneliness can be harmful to your body. I'm not telling you to isolate yourself and be a loner. What I'm telling you is, if you notice the people you're around now are not safe and they're toxic, guess what? Slowly but slowly begin to go out there. Go to cafes, go to libraries, or just go to events, learn new, get to know new people who are safer and deal with them. Either you do that or you temporarily isolate yourself till you find other people. But okay, but don't temporarily isolate yourself if you have mental health issues. No, because that's quite dangerous. Absolutely don't do that. Then go into counseling, whatever you need to get help and learn how to find better and safe people to be with. But what you don't do is pretend or act like you didn't see what you just saw. Is act like, oh, these are good people, they have the reasons, or some of my business. What you don't do is make excuses for how toxic or how unsafe these people are, and then stick around them because now you're facilitating them being harmful and you facilitate them bringing damage on the earth. Simple as that. Another thing with believers, you also need to watch out for. If you find a believer that keeps coming up with their viewpoint, how they feel and think about something, instead of align themselves with reality for what something is, that's a huge red flag. For example, when it comes to daily life, the Heavenly Father designed us human species. male and female. He knows what he designed, what he made. So he knows how we function to our very best. So that means that any opinion or any viewpoint that's not in harmony with the will of the Heavenly Father for us is something that needs to go because it's going to be harmful at some point. I already explained to you there's no such thing as independence with human beings. Now, you can be independent from something, but that means you're dependent on something else instead. We're dependent creatures, simple as that. Independence is nothing but a relative position. You could be independent financially from your parents because you don't rely on them to look after you financially, but now you're financially dependent on something else. So human independence does not exist. And there are believers saying, well, independence does exist because you need independence or to make free will. All that they come with this whole theology that's nothing to do with reality how God built us. Something here in church, whatever. You can't say, well, our shifts how they were raised in church, but no. They need to examine what they align themselves with. If a believer keeps aligning themselves with things that are not confirmed by reality, they talk about free will, the right to will as you will, even though nowhere in the Old and New Testament did Heavenly Father ever granted permission nor authorization to mankind to say no towards His will or just do whatever they want. It's never found in neither Old or New Testament. So where the guy is teaching free will from is not biblical. It's not for the Heavenly Father. And apart from the Bible, the idea that a human being can will whatever they will, feel whatever they want to feel, without being hindered by others, the right to will whatever you will, the right to feel whatever you want to feel. Sorry, but that doesn't work because we're dependent creatures, fragile and vulnerable. So we need to look after one another, and we have to be considerate of one another. So there goes your free will whatever you will. But if people keep holding on to free will, that means now they're in idolatry. That means now they want to escape somewhere. There's something they don't want to face about themselves. There's something they want to escape from, and to make an excuse why they're escaping instead of dealing with that issue, they come with free will. Boundaries, privacy, personal space, whatever narcissistic excuse of the world come up with. That type of believer, all their blessings and protection are on hold. Why? Because you cannot align yourself with a lie and expect the blessing to work out for you. Anytime you align yourself with a lie, all your natural protection and your blessings are on hold, I'm telling you. Now, the Heavenly Father in His sovereignty may still decide to put some protection on you, but the thing is, if you are the one willfully siding with a lie, you're actually spitting Heavenly Father's face. So from that point on, the Heavenly Father is not obliged to make sure you're guarding all of that. Why? Because you, by your own attitudes, are in opposition towards Him. You cannot be in opposition to Heavenly Father and at the same time expect His power and His blessings, protection to work for you. That's not how it works. This happens a lot with believers. They keep holding on to their viewpoint, how they think, how they feel. Listen, how you think and feel is irrelevant. What's relevant is what is the reality of the situation, and you need to admit reality, acknowledge reality, and then see what you can do about it. But a lot of people out there, they feel a certain way, and now instead of checking themselves, because that's a pain for them to do to check themselves, they now want an excuse for how they think and feel, so don't have to be challenged, so don't have to be called out. So they want people to confirm how they think and feel on the inside. And it's not just women doing this, a lot of men are doing it too. I'm sorry, but that's idolatry. And such people are the ones who either end up in cults or they're the ones who end up facilitating a lot of harm because anytime it's time to call something out, they don't have to try to call things out. Why? Because if you call something bad out, but you yourself are part of the problem, guess what? They don't want to be challenged, right? So because they don't want to be challenged or called out, they will keep their mouth shut by calling things out because else attention will be on them. Because if they call something out, they're now in the spotlight. People look at them too. And because they don't want to be in the spotlight, because they don't want to be called out, they will now keep their mouth shut and let bad things happen. I'm telling you. Simple as that. Look, I'm going to wrap up this live stream. I'm almost done. You cannot refuse to self-reflect and reflect in your environment, admit and acknowledge reality, and refuse to comply with justice. You can't refuse all of that and still be a good person, still be of good quality. It doesn't go that way. The moment you decide that you are going to stay in a bad situation, or the moment you decide that you don't want to be accountable and responsible towards anything, or the moment you always want to unclaim your natural obligation, responsibility towards others, from that point on, you become untrustworthy. From that moment on, you become questionable. From that moment on, your blessings and protection is on hold. From that moment on, you've sided with Satan, you sided with fallen angels, and you're now open to any type of evil spirit and any type of toxic and dangerous human being. So you now have made yourself fully available to be harmed and damaged. Now, in the world, you will face danger anyway. So why make yourself available to the danger? That's what you do anytime you align yourself with a lie. What is a lie? Anything that goes against the will of the Heavenly Father. Simple as that. You can't align yourself with the lie and expect to be safe. If you align yourself with the lie, you align yourself with the father of lies, Satan. Simple as that. And you have believers who align themselves with Satan. And then you wonder why these believers never get ahead. You wonder why these believers always stay stuck like that. They may have some smooth success here and there, especially financially, but in the long run, you notice that something's off about them. You have believers out there who have smooth success financially, and they think they're blessed. No, the only thing they have a demonic cash flow triggered by evil spirits because they're in contract with demons. Simple as that. That's all that goes on. Talk to those believers, and you notice that a lot comes out of their mouth is inconsistent, sometimes even harmful. And you think, how can a believer be okay with this? How can a believer get something like that out of their mouth continuously? Guess what? They are believers. They are believers, but they're compromised. They're in darkness. And to keep them in darkness, the demons are making life easy on them. That's what goes on. Listen, the Heavenly Father offers power to us so that we can walk in His power, and nothing shall by no means hurt us. That outcome, that nothing by no means will hurt you, is only going to happen when you walk in the power that God gives you. And to walk in the power, you need to align yourself with Christ. Simple as that. You don't align yourself with Christ, you keep holding on to your opinions, your worldview, how you think and feel, how you see things. Guess what? You're in a line now. The protection and the blessings on hold. You don't walk in power. That means you're guaranteed to be injured here and there. None shall by no means hurt you only applies to believers who are actually walking in power. It doesn't apply to all believers. Simple as that. All right. Are there any questions about this topic? Just let me know in the live chat, please. Just let me know. All right, no questions. Well, thank you all for being here. And be at peace, agree with Christ. Again, you can donate the links below. Check my novels on Amazon. I'll see you next time. Amen. God is good.